Some of the most powerful images ever taken came from the worst places imaginable. These are images that stick with you for years, if not decades, and they can be hauntingly powerful. And while this video is not about war, it is about what we can learn from photographers who choose to operate in conflict zones. I've spent a significant amount of time studying the work of conflict photographers like James Nachtwey, Lynsey Addario, Don McCullen, and Susan Meiselas. And after looking at their work in photo books, reading either their memoirs or biographies, and watching documentaries either online or on television, I've determined a couple of things. These photographers have consistently been able to create powerful work because they're not chasing scenes or looking for the dramatic. It seems to me that they're on the hunt for something that means something. They don't photograph the act of war, they photograph the impact of war on people and human lives. Their work is often centered around the feelings of fear, confusion, and loss. But there's also evidence of deep human connection in many of their images, which is why I think they resonate so much with me. Nachtwey has spent his entire career and built entire bodies of work not related to the spectacle of war, but to the human cost of it. And I often find that Lynsey Addario's work is centered around finding quiet moments amidst the chaos of conflict, and the impact that it has on civilians that are caught in the middle of a war. The emotions that these photographers capture appear in everyday life also. In a conflict zone, they're just amplified. We can learn something from paying attention to these particular parts of life as we go through our day walking around with our camera. These emotions are on display every day to us. And I think it's focusing on these that can help make our work more impactful and more meaningful. And when I think about it, paying attention to and studying conflict photography doesn't teach us about how to photograph in a war zone. It teaches us how to pay attention more to what is happening in our own lives. Some photographs are really easy to look at. Most conflict photography isn't. And that's really the point. When I think about the photographers that I mentioned earlier on, there's a common thread when you hear them talk about the work that they're so dedicated to doing. They talk about bearing witness and how photography is an essential part of doing so. Their work is not about spectacle or entertainment. It's about forcing the viewer to confront the reality that they may not wish to address. And throughout history, photography and conflict photographers have done exactly that. Images from Afghanistan, Vietnam, and Bosnia have helped turn the tide of public opinion and made something that felt so distant very real to those that viewed it. They made these distant wars personal and human. I think there's an important lesson there for all photographers, regardless of what genre of photography you prefer to practice. Because photography is at its best when it doesn't just show us something, but it asks us to pay attention just a little bit more. And when it slows us down just long enough to help us appreciate the experience of another person. And quite frankly, I think we've become way too comfortable and complacent about moving past things at breakneck speeds. We scroll past them, we filter them out, and we move on to the next thing very fast. The work that these conflict photographers do asks us to stop and ask serious questions about what we're doing. Now, more than ever, we need real people witnessing and documenting these events. We have governments that are actively trying to gamify conflict, by using video game clips that are enhanced by AI. And artificial intelligence itself is being used to optimize conflict. If we're not careful, we run the risk of dehumanizing conflict completely. Conflict photographers get close, not just emotionally, but physically. They don't stand back on the periphery of a scene. They get right in it. And as a result, you feel like you were there when they took that image. When I think about Susan Meiseles' work in Nicaragua, or Lynsey Addario's work in Afghanistan, the meaning from many of those photos comes as a direct result of them being close to their subjects. When you spend time looking at them, you feel present and you feel a connection with the image itself, like you were just there. You're not just looking at the moment, you feel like you're in it. I think this is particularly poignant in conflict photography because for many of us, we're so distant from the event that is happening. And when you can view an image and feel so close to the subject, it has a different gravity and meaning to you. It shows you the cost. This is easily translatable to work that we do outside of these horrific conflict zones. If you're working on portraiture, take a couple of steps closer, even if you're using a longer lens. Become closer with your subject, get to know them more. If you're out on the street and you're using a wide lens like a 28 or a 35, it requires you to fill the frame and be closer to the people that you're trying to capture or the scene that you're trying to show in your photography. Being close certainly makes these images feel more and become more impactful. Most of us will never photograph a conflict zone, but that's not the point. I think what these photographers can teach us is that if we're present in the moment and we're paying attention and we make connections with our subjects, we can add more meaning and value to our work. I think the takeaway here is that we often need to pause, slow down, and look at everything that's going on around us before we lift up the camera and decide to press the shutter. It's not about being somewhere special. It's about being present in the place that you're in with your camera at that point in time. Slow down, pay attention, and start to look for what actually matters. I want to take a minute to thank all of you for sticking around to the end and watching this video. I appreciate the continued support. And for those of you new here, my name is Tom. I'm a photographer based out of New Jersey. If you are new and you haven't hit like and subscribe, please do so. We recently hit 500 subscribers, which was the first milestone I'd set for myself. And I'm super proud that we've gotten this far. Again, thank you for all of your support and spending time out of your day to watch this video. I hope it's been meaningful, and I'll see you guys again soon.